Who controls access to sex, men or women?
Women.
Yeah, woman. Woman, obviously.
Yeah, so I would say hookup culture, if we want to see hookup culture stop, because women kind of control when sex happens, so do you have anyone to blame but yourselves on that one?
Women are not victims of hookup culture. If they don't like it, then they should just stop having one-night stands and only sleep with men inside committed relationships. Problem solves overnight. But of course, a lot of young women like hookup culture because it's fun, it's exciting, gives you an ego boost, it's a distraction from self-esteem issues. It gives them validation of their desirability and the opportunity to just sort of revel in their youth and beauty. They're enjoying their time at the top where every man wants them. Women who are at their peak desirability because they're young and hot, they don't mind hookup culture because that's the perfect playground for them. They're not thinking about commitment. They're going to think about that when they're older.
How old are you?
I am almost 30.
So do you think dating is easier for you as you age?
Absolutely not.
Why?
The dating pool is a lot smaller, and or there's a lot more baggage to be a part of this.
So you see why men go for younger women then?
Absolutely. I mean, I get it. But I'm not a younger woman, so you get what you get.
When women get older and they're not able to attract as much male attention anymore because all the men are focusing on younger women, that's when that realization sets in. Oh no, I think I may have wasted my best years. I should have cashed out when I was on top, used my sexual market value peak, find a good man and get him to commit to me. I should have been thinking about my long-term happiness, not just using my best years to like party and hook up and have fun. This woman expresses it really well.
30 and I'm single, and something that I quickly had to learn while dating at my 30s is that 30 or plus year old men would much rather date women that are on their early 20s than women that are 30 or plus years old. And I think the reason for that is because when you turn 30, you hit this wall where you don't take the same shit that you used to take while you were in your 20s. For example, when I was at my 20s, a guy would say, yeah, you know, like, I just need time. I cannot be in a serious relationship with you right now. And I would go for it and I would entertain this man. If a man comes today and says, hey, I'm not ready for a serious relationship, it's like, babe, you're 30. The hairline is going back. Like, what else do you need time for? So I quickly had to realize that I'm probably going to be spending a lot of time single, and I have to be okay with it because I cannot go back to my 20s.
I mean, like she frames it as though the men are the clueless ones because they're still like chasing her for like hookup culture. And the men are delusional because don't they realize they're out of time because their hairline's receding? So much cope from her. The men are going to be fine. Guys at age 30 are not under nearly as much pressure as a woman at age 30. Her fertile years are fading fast, but what's interesting about her is that she actually did have the self-awareness to accurately describe where she went wrong. Of course, guys are still hitting her up for something casual because they're men. They're hardwired to seek out lots of sex, novelty, not offer much commitment. It's not the only part of male sexuality, but it's a strong part. And when she was younger, she used to entertain that. You know, when a man would say, look, I'm not interested in anything serious, I'm just taking things casually. She was like, yeah, okay, I can feel that. That's all good. But now that she's 30, she's changed. She's like, no, do not come to me with that energy. I'm looking for something deeper. I want commitment. I want marriage. I want children, etc. Now she's having to resign herself to the possibility that she's going to remain single. How differently her life might have turned out had she not entertained those guys chasing the casual hookups and looked for a man who was more serious. Then at age 30, she could already be 5 years into a committed relationship with a couple of children. Happy, satisfied, validated in her femininity. Yeah, a few less like fond memories of her partying years, but how important is that really? Now, 30 is not really too old, like it's getting there, but this girl is definitely pretty enough that I'm sure she'd be able to find a man who is able to commit to her, as long as she's got femininity and a nice personality and all that. But 30 is starting to approach it. You know, there's a bit of timeline pressure. Every year that goes on now, she's got fewer and fewer fertile years, and her prospects are going to get worse and worse. Even at age 30, it's starting to push it a little bit because assuming that she wants at least a couple of years to get to know a man and to pair bond, and assuming that she gets it right and isn't going to have to break up with him and start over from scratch, she's on a bit of a timeline, okay? Like married in 2 years, pregnant on the 3rd year, children at 34, next one at 37. She's kind of locked herself into 2 children unless she really, really rushes things. And so that automatically at age 30, it puts her outside of the interest of any man who wants to have a bigger family than that. If this woman was to wait another 5 years, then there probably aren't going to be any men left who are willing to commit to her, at least not ones that want a family. But as she said, she's still getting male attention, but it's of a very specific type. They're still wanting to keep things casually. They're just wanting to hook up. See, that's the thing, that as a woman gets older, she will continue to get male attention, especially if she's pretty, but it's not going to be the kind of attention that she wants. That's what this next woman discovered.
I had a delightful message from one of my dating apps. It was a guy who I matched with, and his first message to me was, "Hey Carla, what if I take you out for dinner and then we end up at your house and then I fuck you until you scream? Would you like that?" No, not really. I'd rather just go for coffee, to be honest. But yeah, that's the beauty of dating at the moment. Men just think they can start off with promiscuous messages and that I'm going to go, "Oh my God, yes. What the best offer I've had all year. It's really what I'm looking for. You've obviously read my profile. Fantastic. Every girl wants to be taken to dinner knowing that you're going to go back to hers." Sucks.
I actually feel sorry for her. I'm not taking any pleasure at her circumstances. But this is the reality for women who are past the sensible age to commit to if you still want children. Men will look at you and they'll think there's no point wifing you up because we can't start a family. And so the attention that they receive is purely sexual because he's thinking, yeah, I wouldn't commit to you because you're too old, but we can still have sex. You're still tempting as a casual sex partner, but commitment with you, I mean, what's the point? All of this is to say that I think hookup culture is just terrible for women. It is a complete waste of their best years. If feminism existed truly to serve the best interests of women, then they would come out really strongly against hookup culture. They would tell women in their 20s, stop all this sleeping around, stop all this reveling in your own beauty and this partying. You're young, you're beautiful, men are interested in you. Great. Use this opportunity to find a good man and then lock him down. That advice would benefit so many more young women than the current crop of feminist advice about being pro-promiscuity. And in saying this, I'm probably going to piss off a large, section of my male audience because they don't want women in their 20s to exit the hookup culture. It suits them and their playboy lifestyle. They like that women are into casual sex and promiscuity because it makes it much easier for them. They're men, they want to sleep around and they want to have a huge variety of women who are up for it. And they're like, Alexander, stop telling women to get out of the dating market. You're ruining my game. But I really don't care. Your value system is not my value system. Yes, this is a channel for men and it's about finding male happiness with a woman, but I really don't care if you get laid for the 20th time this year. Like, I'm not remotely supportive of that goal. I don't care about your suffering if you don't manage to get just one more notch on your belt. I want to see good men in good long-term relationships with women. Happy, healthy, functioning relationships that last for a long time and produce children. And I want to see women happy. I don't say these things about like young women should cash out of the dating market when they're at their peak and otherwise you've left it too long, because I'm interested in shaming older women who are suffering like some of the women we saw in these clips. No, I have compassion for them and I want to be honest about why they're facing the circumstances that they're facing so as to prevent this new generation of younger girls who are entering into their 20s from making those same mistakes. So I made this crude graph here to really get my point across to explain when a woman should settle down. Here is when she's at her peak desirability, and age-wise, this is early to mid-20s. At that age, she's still young, she's physically gorgeous, but she's also got some maturity, some wisdom. She knows herself, she's had some life experiences. She's capable of making smarter, more informed decisions than she was a few years earlier. And she really feels like an adult, someone who's able to take responsibility for herself. Exceptions exist, obviously, but as a general rule, this is the age when women are at their peak. And they should be using that point when they're at their peak beauty, when they're at their peak maturity, like they've got adult minds, they've got their values clarified. They should use that time to try and find a man to settle down with. Lock it in. Cash out when you're at the top. That's when you're going to find the highest quality man. Do not waste this period just partying and hooking up because you don't understand how quickly it's all going to fade. It's downhill from here. As you get older, your personality is going to have more and more bitterness. As you've gotten older, your life isn't turning out the way that you wanted it to, and so you're getting a little bit pissed off. Men are letting you down. Failed relationships, dates that didn't show up, unsatisfying experiences. You had in your mind it was all going to work out, but with every year that goes on, you feel more and more doubt and more lost, and it just creates bitterness. That bitterness is not attractive to men, so that's a step down. There's also going to be increased masculinity, because as you move through life as a functional adult, you realize that there's going to be a lot of practical tasks to get done to take care of yourself, and your masculine energy is the best way that you can do that. You can't just be feminine forever, you got to get shit done. It's admirable in one sense, but the thing is that men are not attracted to masculinity in women. So the more you're having to lean into that masculinity as you get older, that's going to be another step down in terms of men's level of attraction for you. You're also going to have more sexual partners the longer you stay in the dating market. And the more that your number goes up, the less men are going to be attracted to you. As I've covered in plenty of my other videos, men have deeply ingrained instincts from evolutionary psychology warning them against women who've got a lot of sexual partners. Another step down is that your looks are going to fade. No woman looks as good at 35 as she did at 25. And as I explained, as you get older, you're going to have less and less fertile years. Maybe you've even had children already, and that's going to be a huge repellent for any man who wanted to do that experience for the first time with someone who's also doing it for the first time. We have instincts warning us against being a biological sucker, and if you're investing your time, energy, and effort as a man into raising another man's child, well, from an evolutionary perspective, in terms of propagating your own genes, that's not a good use of time. Now, you can complain about that graph and all the points that I've made and say that it's sexist. Plenty of modern feminists make that exact case. It's actually men that are the problem. If they were less superficial, then none of this would be an issue. It's up to men to change. They should all be interested in dating hyper-masculine old grannies who can't have children. And the fact that they're not like that just means that men are superficial. Okay, whatever. Let's just say that it's sexist. Do you see how that's not actually helping? It's not going to fix your personal situation, because guess what? When it comes to stuff as deeply ingrained as our sexual attraction, it's kind of immune to all of your shaming tactics. Like, you can just keep insulting and belittling and criticizing men for the things they find attractive, but you're never going to convince the culture of men to find 35-year-old women to be more sexually appealing than a 25-year-old woman. These preferences for men are at a level of biology. No amount of cultural shame is going to change that. So by choosing that as your strategy, all you're doing is doubling down on a feeling of victimhood. You're not actually improving the lives of women. I think that's why it's far more kind to just be honest with women, to just tell them, this is how it is. This is what men are interested in. This is what we like. Accept it as a fact of reality. Don't argue against it. Don't fight against it, because you're just harming yourself. Accept it and then make a sensible choice. When you're at your peak, don't waste your years partying and drinking and sleeping around. At your peak, cash out of the dating market. That's when you're going to get your best deal. Now, when I make videos like this, I'm going to get questioned like, well, whose team are you on? Do you make your content to benefit men, or do you make it to benefit women? Isn't helping women meet their relationship goals going to be at the expense of men? Aren't you meant to be a guy who's helping men? My answer to that is that it's complicated, but ultimately no. Dating isn't a zero-sum game, or it doesn't have to be. It can be when both people have a toxic value system, but when there's a healthy value system in place, what benefits men also benefits women. There's no competition. So what is that value system where both men and women can cooperate and thrive equally? You want to know this value system so that you can adopt it and encourage your girlfriend to have it as well. I explain what this value system is in the full-length version of this video, which is available on my Patreon. What you're seeing here on YouTube, this is just the shortened, abridged version. If you want to see the extended version where I go into that value system, come see me on Patreon.